Olivia Bennett used to believe that hard work could protect a person from betrayal. She believed long nights, sacrificed weekends, and years of exhaustion would eventually build a life nobody could take away from her. She was wrong. The moment she opened her banking app that rainy Thursday night, everything she had spent years building collapsed in less than 30 seconds. Her savings were gone. The company reserve fund was gone. Even the protected client deposit account she managed for upcoming luxury design projects had been emptied. At first, Olivia thought it had to be a cyber attack. Her hands shook so badly that she almost dropped her phone while refreshing the screen again and again, hoping the numbers would magically return. But then a message appeared from her mother, Margaret Bennett. "Your sister and I finally decided to live the life we deserve. Maybe now you'll learn that money means nothing without family." Attached to the message was a photo of Margaret and Sophia sitting in first-class seats on a flight to Dubai, smiling with champagne glasses raised toward the camera. Olivia stopped breathing for a second. The apartment around her suddenly felt too quiet, too small, too cold. She stared at the image while memories crashed into her mind all at once. Sophia casually asking questions about Olivia's business accounts during family dinners. Her mother insisting on borrowing Olivia's old laptop because hers was too slow. The strange moment 2 weeks earlier when Margaret joked that Olivia cared more about spreadsheets than people. Back then, Olivia laughed it off because she still believed family members could be selfish sometimes without being dangerous. Now every memory felt like evidence. Olivia had built her interior design company from nothing. She started with tiny apartment makeovers and coffee shop renovations, before eventually designing luxury penthouses and boutique hotels across Seattle. Clients trusted her because she was disciplined, organized, and impossible to manipulate in business. Ironically, the only people who ever managed to fool her were the people she loved most. She stood frozen in her kitchen while rain hit the windows hard enough to sound like stones. Her pulse slowed instead of racing, because shock had turned into something colder. She opened her laptop and checked the transaction records, one by one. The money had been transferred through a company called Bennett Capital Group, a business she had never created. Someone had used her personal information to open fake corporate accounts and route the transfers overseas. Olivia felt sick when she realized this was not impulsive theft. It was planned carefully for months. Then another message appeared from Sophia. "Don't bother calling us. You always acted like you were better than the rest of the family anyway." That sentence hurt more than the missing money. Olivia had spent years paying medical bills, covering emergency expenses, and rescuing her family from debt whenever disaster hit. Yet somehow she had still become the villain in their story. She sat down slowly at the dining table and looked around the apartment she had worked so hard to afford. For the first time in her life, home no longer felt safe, but deep inside the fear, another feeling started growing quietly: anger. Not loud anger, not emotional anger, the kind of calm anger that appears when trust finally dies. And Olivia had no idea yet that this betrayal was about to destroy her family, expose dangerous financial crimes, and force her to choose between protecting the people she loved or saving herself. If you enjoy emotional betrayal stories like this, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss the next chapter. Olivia Bennett thought losing her savings was the worst thing that could happen. She had no idea the real nightmare was only beginning. The next morning she walked into her office, expecting panic from her employees, angry calls from clients, and maybe the collapse of her business. Instead, she found something even more terrifying waiting in her inbox. 3 unread emails marked urgent. The first was from a luxury hotel chain preparing to sue her company if a deposit payment didn't arrive within 48 hours. The second came from her bank's fraud department requesting immediate verification regarding suspicious international transfers connected to corporate accounts under her name. But the third email made her stomach drop so hard she almost couldn't breathe. It came from one of her biggest clients. Olivia Y. was money moved from the protected renovation escrow account. Her vision blurred for a second. That escrow account was never supposed to be touched. The funds inside belonged to clients, not her company. It was money temporarily protected by legal agreements until construction milestones were completed. Olivia immediately logged into the account and felt cold spread through her entire body. Someone had attempted multiple transfers during the night. One had failed. Another was still pending review. A third had already been partially processed before the bank stopped it automatically. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through the records. The transactions were routed through Bennett Capital Group again. Her fake company. Her fake signature. Her stolen identity. Olivia suddenly realized this was no longer just family betrayal. This was financial fraud involving protected funds. If investigators believed she was responsible, she could lose everything she had ever built. Her company, her reputation, possibly even her freedom. She locked the office door and sat alone in silence while her phone buzzed nonstop with notifications. Then another message arrived from Sophia. Relax. Nobody's going to arrest you. You're overreacting like always. Olivia stared at the screen in disbelief. Sophia still thought this was only about stolen money. She didn't understand the disaster they had created. Or maybe she simply didn't care. Olivia immediately called Ethan Walker, the attorney, who had helped her negotiate contracts for years. The moment he heard the word escrow, his tone changed completely. Olivia, listen carefully. Do not contact your family again. Save every message, every login attempt, every transfer record. Starting now, you treat this like a criminal investigation. For the first time since the nightmare began, Olivia felt genuine fear. Not fear of losing money, but fear of being blamed for crimes she didn't commit. Ethan arrived at her office less than an hour later, carrying a leather briefcase and a look Olivia had never seen before. Calm, focused, dangerous. Together they reviewed every transaction, while rain hammered against the windows outside. Ethan's expression darkened with every page. This was planned, he finally said quietly. Your mother and sister didn't just steal from you. They tried to move protected corporate funds through international accounts. That crosses legal lines they clearly don't understand. Olivia leaned back in her chair and closed her eyes. Suddenly, every memory from the last few months became sharper. Margaret constantly asking how escrow payments worked. Sophia joking that rich clients probably never noticed missing money anyway. The strange day their mother insisted on cleaning Olivia's office while she was out meeting contractors. They hadn't acted emotionally. They had studied her life carefully. Then Olivia's phone rang again. Margaret. Olivia answered this time. Her mother didn't even sound guilty. Olivia stopped freezing the accounts. Sophia is crying because her card stopped working. Olivia almost laughed from the shock of hearing that sentence. You stole client money, she whispered. Silence filled the line for 2 long seconds before Margaret answered coldly, family should come before strangers. That was the moment something inside Olivia finally broke forever, not loudly, not dramatically, just permanently. If you think Olivia should fight back and expose the truth, no matter who gets hurt, comment the number 2 below. Olivia Bennett thought the betrayal couldn't get any worse until she saw the photos from Dubai. While she sat inside her dark office, trying to stop her business from collapsing, her mother Margaret and sister Sophia were posting pictures online, like celebrities celebrating a victory. Designer shopping bags, gold-covered desserts, ocean view penthouse suites. Every image felt like another knife pushed deeper into Olivia's chest, because she knew exactly where that money had come from. It came from the years she skipped vacations, the nights she slept in her office before project deadlines, the moments she said no to herself so her company could survive. And now the people who stole it were using it to build a fantasy life on the other side of the world. But the worst part wasn't the luxury. It was the captions. Finally free from toxic people. Some family members only care about money. Starting over with people who truly love me. Olivia stared at the screen in disbelief. Margaret and Sophia weren't hiding what they had done. They were rewriting the story completely. In their version, Olivia was the selfish daughter who abandoned her family after becoming successful. Within hours, relatives started messaging her. An aunt wrote your mother sacrificed everything for you. A cousin said money shouldn't destroy a family. Not one person asked Olivia if the accusations were true. Not one asked how her accounts had been emptied overnight. They simply accepted the version that sounded more comfortable. Olivia finally understood something painful about betrayal. People often prefer a simple lie over an uncomfortable truth. Ethan warned her not to respond publicly yet. Let them keep talking, he said quietly, while reviewing evidence inside her office. Arrogant people usually destroy themselves faster when they believe nobody can stop them. Olivia wanted to scream online. She wanted to post screenshots of stolen transactions, fake companies, and international wire transfers. She wanted every relative defending Margaret to feel ashamed. But she stayed silent because Ethan was right. This was no longer emotional. It was strategic. Meanwhile, investigators from the bank had already started tracing the money trail. That afternoon, Olivia received confirmation that several large purchases in Dubai had been flagged automatically because the accounts were under fraud review. Luxury hotel payments, jewelry purchases, international transfers. Every transaction created more evidence against Margaret and Sophia. Then another message appeared from Sophia late that night. "You're embarrassing yourself by involving lawyers. Mom cries every day because of you." Olivia read the message twice, before slowly placing the phone face down on the table. The manipulation was so familiar, it almost felt routine. Her mother had spent years turning guilt into a weapon. Whenever Olivia refused financial help, Margaret would suddenly become sick, heartbroken, or emotionally devastated. Whenever Sophia made reckless decisions, Olivia somehow became responsible for fixing them. But something had changed now. The fear was disappearing. In its place came clarity. Olivia realized her family never truly saw her as a daughter or sister. They saw her as security, as a backup plan, as an emergency bank account with emotions attached to it, and the moment she stopped providing unlimited rescue, they turned her into the villain. Around midnight, Ethan called again with new information. "Olivia," he said carefully, "the bank confirmed your mother attempted another transfer after the fraud alert was activated." Olivia closed her eyes slowly. "Even after everything, Margaret still tried to steal more." Ethan continued quietly. "That changes everything legally. This is no longer confusion or family conflict. This now looks intentional." Olivia walked toward the apartment window and stared at the Seattle skyline, glowing under the rain. For the first time since the nightmare began, she no longer felt heartbroken. She felt awake. And Margaret Bennett had no idea that the empire she was celebrating in Dubai was already beginning to collapse beneath her feet. If you want to see what happens when Olivia finally fights back, don't forget to subscribe for the next chapter. Olivia Bennett stopped thinking of her mother and sister as careless thieves the moment Ethan uncovered the truth behind Bennett Capital Group. What they had built wasn't some rushed scam created in panic. It was organized, deliberate, and terrifyingly intelligent. Late that night, Ethan spread dozens of printed documents across Olivia's dining table while the city lights flickered through the apartment windows. Corporate registration records, temporary phone numbers, fake mailing addresses, international transfer receipts. The deeper they investigated, the worse it became. Bennett Capital Group had been legally registered nearly 4 months earlier, using a variation of Olivia's digital signature. Someone had even uploaded scanned copies of her identification documents. Olivia stared at the papers in silence, feeling her stomach twist tighter with every page. "This means they planned everything long before the money disappeared," Ethan said quietly. Olivia's mind instantly replayed every strange interaction she had ignored. Her mother insisting on helping organize old paperwork at the apartment, Sophia offering to fix Olivia's laptop after it became slow for a few days, Margaret randomly asking security questions disguised as casual family conversations. "What was the name of your first pet again? Do you still use the same password style from college at the time?" Olivia never imagined those harmless questions were pieces of a lock being opened around her entire life. Ethan then pointed toward another document that made Olivia's blood run cold. Bennett Capital Group wasn't only connected to her stolen savings. The fake company had also been linked to 2 online loan applications and several overseas cryptocurrency accounts created under Olivia's name. Someone was preparing for far more than theft. They were building an escape route. Olivia slowly sat down, struggling to breathe normally. "My own family turned me into a fake identity," she whispered. Ethan didn't answer immediately because the truth sitting between them was already painful enough. Finally, he said quietly, "Olivia, they weren't acting emotionally. They were acting strategically." That sentence shattered something inside her. Because deep down, Olivia had still been holding onto one comforting lie: maybe Margaret and Sophia acted impulsively. Maybe desperation or greed temporarily blinded them. But this evidence destroyed that illusion completely. They had studied her routines, copied her habits, stolen her information, and created an entire financial structure designed to drain her life without leaving immediate evidence. It wasn't betrayal in a moment of weakness, it was calculated exploitation. Then Olivia discovered something even worse. One of the fake mailing addresses connected to Bennett Capital Group belonged to an apartment building only 10 minutes away from her office. Ethan immediately arranged access through investigators working with the bank. Inside the mailbox records, they found unopened envelopes addressed to Olivia Bennett containing replacement debit cards and banking verification letters. Someone had been intercepting her financial information for months. Olivia suddenly remembered the strange afternoon when Margaret casually offered to check the mailbox while visiting her apartment because Olivia was busy on a client call. At the time, it seemed like a simple favor. Now it felt like a scene from a crime documentary. Rage finally replaced shock. Olivia stood up so fast her chair nearly fell backward. "They watched me build my entire life," she said, through clenched teeth. "Then they used everything they learned against me." Ethan nodded once, before sliding another document toward her. A surveillance image from a Seattle bank branch. Sophia stood beside the ATM, wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap, while withdrawing cash from one of the fraudulent accounts. The timestamp was only 2 days before the Dubai flight. Olivia stared at her sister's face for a long moment. There was no panic, no fear. Sophia looked calm, comfortable, almost proud. That image hurt more than the stolen money ever could because it proved one brutal truth: they never expected Olivia to fight back. They believed she would stay quiet out of love, guilt, and family loyalty. But they were wrong. And for the first time since this nightmare began, Olivia stopped feeling like a victim. She started feeling dangerous. If you think Olivia should expose every secret her family tried to hide, leave a comment below. Olivia Bennett always believed betrayal happened suddenly, like a door slamming shut without warning. But the truth was far more disturbing. Betrayal had been living quietly inside her life for months, while she smiled at family dinners and trusted the wrong people with pieces of herself. The realization hit hardest 3 days after Ethan uncovered Bennett Capital Group. That morning, investigators from the bank sent Olivia a detailed timeline of unauthorized access connected to her accounts. As she scrolled through the records, her chest tightened more with every timestamp. The first suspicious login happened nearly 6 months earlier, then another, and another. Small attempts at first, password resets, security verification requests, device authorizations from locations close to her mother's neighborhood. Olivia sat frozen at her kitchen counter, while memories returned one by one like broken glass rising from deep water. She remembered Margaret insisting on borrowing her tablet during Thanksgiving, because she wanted to order recipes online. She remembered Sophia laughing while asking what Olivia's favorite childhood movie was, after one of her accounts later used that exact answer as a security recovery question. There was even the afternoon Margaret accidentally spilled tea near Olivia's work bag and insisted on cleaning everything herself while Olivia changed clothes upstairs. At the time, Olivia thought it was clumsy affection. Now she realized her mother had probably been searching for banking documents or access codes. Every loving gesture suddenly looked contaminated. Every family memory now carried suspicion hidden inside it. Ethan arrived later that afternoon, carrying more evidence from the fraud investigators. "You need to prepare yourself," he warned quietly, before placing a folder on the table. Inside were screenshots of login attempts connected to Olivia's accounts over several months. But what destroyed her emotionally wasn't the hacking, it was the locations. Most of the logins came directly from Margaret's house, the same house where Olivia spent birthdays, Christmas mornings, family dinners. The same house she once considered the safest place in the world. Olivia covered her mouth with trembling fingers while staring at the records. "They started planning this while pretending nothing was wrong," she whispered. Ethan nodded carefully. "This kind of fraud usually escalates slowly. They tested access first. Once they realized you trusted them completely, they became more aggressive." Olivia leaned back against the chair and closed her eyes. Suddenly she remembered dozens of tiny moments she had ignored. Sophia offering to help organize financial files during office visits, Margaret becoming strangely defensive whenever Olivia mentioned cybersecurity. The time her mother casually asked whether clients ever audited escrow accounts closely. None of it sounded dangerous back then. Together it now formed a map of manipulation, stretching across months of deception. Then Ethan revealed something even worse. One of the investigators recovered deleted browser history from Olivia's old laptop. Searches included phrases like best countries without US extradition, international banking transfer limits, and how long fraud investigations take. Olivia felt physically sick. Her family hadn't simply stolen money and escaped impulsively. They had researched how to disappear afterward. Tears finally filled her eyes, but not because of the money. It was grief. Grief for every memory that no longer felt real. Grief for the version of her mother she thought existed. Grief for the sister who used to braid her hair, while secretly planning how to destroy her future. Margaret and Sophia didn't just steal Olivia's accounts, they stole her ability to look back at her own life, without questioning what was genuine. The apartment suddenly felt unbearably quiet. Olivia stared at the rain sliding down the windows, and realized something painful: strangers could hurt her financially, but only family could rewrite the meaning of her entire past. Ethan remained silent for a long moment, before finally saying, "Olivia, they counted on your love, making you weak." Olivia slowly wiped away her tears, and looked up at him, with an expression colder than anything he had seen from her before. "Then they made the biggest mistake of their lives," she replied softly. Olivia Bennett finally understood something terrifying the night Ethan told her to stop acting like a daughter and start thinking like a survivor. Until then, part of her still hoped there was a misunderstanding hidden somewhere inside the nightmare. Maybe her mother would panic and apologize. Maybe Sophia would admit everything had gone too far. But those illusions died the moment Ethan placed a digital recorder on the table and played the latest intercepted phone call connected to the investigation. Olivia listened in silence, as Sophia laughed in the background, while Margaret complained that frozen accounts were ruining their vacation. Then came the sentence that changed everything forever. "Olivia won't press charges," Margaret said confidently. "She's too emotional to destroy her own family." Ethan stopped the recording and looked directly at Olivia. "That," he said quietly, "is why they believed they could get away with this." Olivia felt something inside her go cold and sharp. Not sadness anymore. Not heartbreak. Clarity. For months, Margaret and Sophia had not only stolen her money, identity, and business security, they had weaponized her love. They believed kindness made her weak. They believed loyalty made her predictable. And worst of all, they believed guilt would keep her silent forever. Ethan opened his briefcase and began laying out a strategy, unlike anything Olivia expected. From this moment on, he explained every conversation, every message, every financial move becomes evidence. You stop reacting emotionally. You document everything. Olivia nodded slowly while staring at the growing stack of files covering her dining table. The apartment no longer looked like a home. It looked like the center of a criminal investigation. Ethan then handed her a printed list of immediate actions. Freeze all remaining accounts. Notify clients before rumors spread publicly. File identity theft. Reports with federal agencies. Request emergency protection for corporate funds. Begin legal preparation for fraud litigation. Olivia scanned the list and suddenly realized how close she had come to losing absolutely everything. One more successful transfer, and her company would have collapsed beyond repair. One more week without discovering the fake accounts, and investigators might have believed she created them herself. "They almost erased my entire life," Olivia whispered. Ethan didn't disagree. Instead, he reached for another folder and slid it toward her. Inside were screenshots from social media accounts belonging to Margaret and Sophia, lavish dinners, luxury shopping malls, private yacht photos from Dubai Marina. But this time Ethan pointed towards something Olivia missed before: the timestamps. While Olivia was desperately negotiating with banks to stop fraud investigations, Margaret and Sophia were publicly spending stolen money in real time. "Arrogance creates evidence," Ethan said calmly. "People who think they're untouchable become careless." Olivia stared at one image of Sophia holding diamond bracelets while smiling at the camera. Beneath the photo was the caption, "New beginnings deserve beautiful rewards." Olivia almost laughed at the cruelty of it. Sophia wasn't hiding anymore, because she genuinely believed Olivia would never fight back hard enough to destroy them. That realization hurt deeply, but it also removed the last traces of hesitation. For the first time since the betrayal began, Olivia stopped asking herself why her family did this. The answer no longer mattered. What mattered now was survival. Ethan then leaned forward seriously. Olivia listened carefully. Your mother and sister are already treating this like a war. If you keep thinking like family, while they think like criminals, you lose. Silence filled the apartment after those words. Rain tapped softly against the windows, while Seattle lights reflected across the wet streets outside. Olivia slowly looked down at her hands. These same hands had built her business from nothing. The same hands that once wrote birthday cards to Sophia and paid hospital bills for Margaret. But now those hands would be used for something else, fighting back. Olivia finally lifted her eyes toward Ethan with a calm expression that almost frightened him. Then we make sure they regret underestimating me, she said quietly. If you want to see Olivia take back control and expose the truth piece by piece, don't forget to like and subscribe for the next chapter. Olivia Bennett thought the financial fraud was the worst part of the nightmare, but she was wrong. Losing money hurt. Losing trust destroyed her. Yet nothing compared to watching her own family turn the world against her, while pretending to be victims. Only a week after Margaret and Sophia arrived in Dubai, the story online changed completely. Suddenly, Olivia wasn't the hardworking business owner whose accounts had been emptied. According to social media, she had become the cold-hearted daughter who abandoned her struggling family after becoming successful. Margaret posted emotional photos with captions about surviving toxic relatives. Sophia uploaded videos crying in luxury hotel bathrooms, while telling followers she had spent years living under Olivia's control. Thousands of strangers believed every word, because lies wrapped in emotion spread faster than facts ever could. Olivia sat in silence inside her apartment one evening while scrolling through comments that felt like bullets hitting her chest. Money changes people. Your poor mother deserves better. Success made Olivia selfish. Some comments were even worse. People accused her of hiding money from her own family and fabricating the fraud story for attention. Olivia wanted to throw her phone across the room. How are they winning? She whispered hoarsely. Ethan, sitting across from her, surrounded by legal files, didn't even look surprised. Because public opinion reacts to emotion first, he answered calmly. Truth takes longer. But the damage kept growing. Clients began asking careful questions during meetings. Employees looked nervous whenever Olivia walked through the office. One investor paused a future partnership until the family situation became clearer. That sentence alone nearly made Olivia laugh from exhaustion. Family situation. As if this were a misunderstanding instead of organized fraud. The cruelest part was how convincing Margaret sounded online. She spoke softly in videos describing herself as a mother heartbroken by greed. Sophia constantly mentioned childhood memories and emotional sacrifices. They never directly admitted stealing money, because they didn't need to. They simply buried the truth beneath performance and guilt. Olivia finally realized something terrifying: manipulation worked best when mixed with partial truths. Yes, Olivia had become financially successful. Yes, she worked constantly. Yes, she sometimes missed family gatherings because of business deadlines. Margaret and Sophia took those small truths and twisted them into a completely different reality. Ethan warned her repeatedly not to respond emotionally online. The second you explode publicly, he explained, they become the victims again. So Olivia stayed silent while strangers destroyed her reputation piece by piece. Every day felt heavier than the last. Then came the moment that nearly broke her completely. One night, Olivia received a voicemail from an elderly relative she hadn't spoken to in years. The woman sounded disappointed. Your mother always defended you, Olivia. I can't believe you'd abandon family over money. Olivia replayed the message 3 times before slowly lowering the phone. Her hands shook violently. After everything Margaret had done, people still saw her as the loving mother. Meanwhile, Olivia looked like the villain simply because she refused to collapse emotionally in public. Ethan noticed the tears forming in her eyes and quietly handed her another folder. Read this, he said. Inside were official financial reports from the fraud investigators. Frozen transaction records. Luxury purchases tied directly to stolen accounts. International transfer logs connected to Margaret and Sophia's passports. The evidence was overwhelming. Real. Solid. Unarguable. Ethan leaned forward seriously. Right now they own the internet story, he admitted. But facts survive longer than performances. Olivia stared at the documents while slowly steadying her breathing. He was right. Social media could create temporary heroes and villains overnight. But courts operated differently. Banks operated differently. Evidence operated differently. And for the first time in days, Olivia felt something stronger than humiliation rising inside her chest. Patience. Margaret and Sophia were performing for sympathy while leaving digital footprints everywhere they went. They were too focused on controlling emotions to realize they were building a legal case against themselves in real time. Olivia carefully closed the folder and wiped away the last tear from her face. "Let them keep talking," she said quietly. "The truth is already catching up to them. If you think Olivia should stay silent until the perfect moment to expose everything, comment the number 6 below." Olivia Bennett knew the silence wouldn't last forever. Lies could spread quickly online, but banks move differently. Investigators move differently. And somewhere, beneath all the fake tears, luxury photos, and emotional manipulation numbers, were quietly telling the truth. The turning point came on a stormy Monday morning, when Ethan called her before sunrise. His voice sounded sharper than usual. "Olivia," he said immediately, "they froze the international accounts." Olivia sat upright in bed, suddenly wide awake. What Ethan exhaled slowly. The fraud division traced multiple transactions from the stolen escrow funds directly into overseas purchases connected to Margaret and Sophia. Dubai banks flagged the activity overnight. For the first time in weeks, Olivia felt something close to relief. Small, fragile, but real. Ethan arrived at her apartment an hour later, carrying updated financial reports. Together they spread the documents across the kitchen counter, while rain crashed against the windows outside. Every page told the same story. Luxury hotel payments had been suspended, jewelry purchases were under investigation. Several wire transfers linked to Bennett Capital Group had been blocked before completion. Olivia stared at the numbers in disbelief. Margaret and Sophia were finally losing control. "They got careless," Ethan explained while highlighting transaction timestamps. Once the accounts entered fraud, review every international purchase became visible to investigators. Olivia leaned against the counter quietly. For days she had watched her mother and sister behave like untouchable celebrities online. Now the illusion was beginning to crack. Then her phone rang. "Sophia." Olivia hesitated for 2 seconds before answering. The panic in Sophia's voice was immediate. "Olivia, what did you do?" she demanded breathlessly. "Our cards stopped working. The hotel manager said, there's some investigation happening. Mom's freaking out." Olivia closed her eyes slowly. Just days earlier, Sophia had mocked her for involving lawyers. Now fear had finally entered her voice. "You stole money connected to protected accounts," Olivia answered calmly. "Did you really think nobody would notice?" Silence filled the line for a moment before Sophia snapped back defensively. "We were going to pay it back." Olivia almost laughed from exhaustion. Pay it back. As if draining company funds, creating fake identities, and laundering money internationally could somehow be undone with an apology. Then Margaret grabbed the phone. Unlike Sophia, her voice sounded angry instead of frightened. "You're destroying this family," she hissed. "Freezing our accounts. Calling investigators. How could you do this to your own mother?" Olivia stood frozen beside the kitchen window, while rain blurred the Seattle skyline outside. For a moment, old instincts tried to return. Guilt. Fear. The desperate need to keep peace inside the family. But then she remembered the stolen accounts. The fake companies. The months of manipulation. The luxury photos bought with money that nearly destroyed her life. And suddenly the guilt disappeared again. "No," Olivia said quietly into the phone. "You destroyed this family when you decided my life was something you could steal." Margaret immediately began crying, switching tones so fast it almost sounded rehearsed. "We were desperate," she sobbed. "Sophia needed help. We thought you'd understand." Olivia gripped the edge of the counter tighter. Desperate people didn't research extradition laws. Desperate people didn't create shell companies months in advance. Desperate people didn't celebrate stolen money on yachts in Dubai. Ethan watched her carefully from across the room, silently reminding her not to fall back into emotional arguments. Olivia took a slow breath. The investigators already have the transaction records, she said calmly. Every transfer, every purchase, every fake account. The crying stopped instantly. For the first time since this nightmare began, Margaret sounded uncertain. Small. Human. Olivia, she whispered weakly. Please. But it was too late. The illusion of control was gone now. Banks were cooperating with investigators. Fraud specialists were tracking international transfers in real time. And Margaret Bennett was finally realizing that love could no longer protect her from consequences. Olivia slowly lowered the phone after the call ended. The apartment became silent except for the storm outside. Ethan looked at her carefully before asking one quiet question. How do you feel? Olivia stared out at the rain for several seconds before answering. Like they finally understand I'm not afraid of them anymore. Olivia Bennett thought she had finally regained control of the nightmare, until the FBI called her directly. The voice on the phone was calm, professional, almost emotionless. But the words hit harder than anything she had heard so far. Miss Bennett, we need to discuss international financial activity connected to your identity. Olivia stood frozen in the middle of her apartment, while the city lights shimmered through the rain outside. For one terrifying second, she imagined handcuffs, criminal charges, reporters, waiting outside her office. Even after all the evidence proving she was a victim, fear still crawled under her skin because Margaret and Sophia had used her name everywhere. Ethan immediately joined the call and placed it on speaker. The federal investigator explained that several overseas transfers connected to Bennett Capital Group had triggered anti-money laundering alerts across multiple banking systems. The accounts had moved through Dubai, Singapore, and Cyprus before investigators froze them. Olivia felt sick listening to the list of countries. Her mother and sister hadn't simply stolen from her anymore. They had dragged her identity through an international financial crime investigation. At this stage, the investigator continued carefully. We believe you are the victim of coordinated fraud. However, we need full cooperation moving forward. Olivia slowly sat down at the kitchen table, while Ethan took notes beside her. Full cooperation. The phrase sounded so official it almost frightened her more than the investigation itself. After the call ended, silence filled the apartment for several seconds. Finally, Olivia whispered, "My own family turned my life into a federal case." Ethan didn't correct her because it was true. The situation had moved far beyond family betrayal now. Banks, investigators, fraud specialists, and international financial agencies were involved. Margaret and Sophia were no longer simply irresponsible relatives spending stolen money. They were becoming the center of a growing criminal investigation. Then Ethan revealed another problem. "Olivia, there's something else," he said carefully while opening a new folder. Inside were copies of online articles and gossip blogs, spreading rumors about her company. Headlines claimed she secretly transferred corporate funds overseas before pretending to be a victim. Some articles even suggested she staged the entire scandal for insurance money. Olivia stared at the pages in disbelief. "They're trying to make me look guilty before the truth comes out," she whispered. Ethan nodded grimly. "If public opinion turns against you hard enough, it creates doubt. Doubt benefits them." Olivia suddenly understood Margaret's strategy more clearly than ever before. Her mother knew she couldn't outrun financial investigators forever, so instead, she was trying to poison Olivia's credibility before the legal truth became public. If enough people questioned Olivia's honesty, then every accusation against Margaret would look like revenge instead of evidence. The manipulation was terrifyingly calculated. Later that evening, Olivia received another unexpected call, this time from Sophia. Her voice sounded different now. No arrogance, no mocking confidence, only panic. "Olivia, please listen," Sophia said quickly. "Mom says things got out of control. We didn't mean for this to happen." Olivia closed her eyes. Weeks earlier, Sophia posted yacht photos while calling Olivia toxic online. Now suddenly she wanted understanding. "You researched extradition laws?" Olivia answered quietly. "You opened fake accounts in my name. You moved money through multiple countries. At what point exactly did things become Out of control, Sophia began crying immediately. Real crying this time, desperate, messy, human. But Olivia noticed something strange. Even now, Sophia never actually apologized. She never said the words, "I'm sorry." Instead, she kept talking about fear, stress, pressure, and mistakes. Everything except responsibility. Ethan watched silently from across the room, while Olivia listened to her sister fall apart emotionally. Weeks ago, this conversation would have destroyed her. She would have rushed to fix everything, to save everyone, but now all she felt was exhaustion. "Sophia," Olivia finally said softly, "you stopped being family the moment you decided my life was something you could sacrifice to protect your own." Then she ended the call. And for the first time since the nightmare began, Olivia realized something powerful. Fear no longer controlled her. The truth did. Olivia Bennett knew the final collapse had begun the moment federal investigators arrived in Seattle, with warrants connected to Bennett Capital Group. The nightmare that started with missing money had now become something much bigger, and for the first time since Margaret and Sophia fled to Dubai, Olivia could feel the balance shifting. No more social media performances, no more emotional manipulation, no more pretending this was simply a family disagreement. It was a criminal investigation now, and the evidence was becoming impossible to escape. Ethan met Olivia outside the federal building early that morning, while gray clouds hung low above the city. She looked exhausted, but something inside her had changed permanently. The fear that once controlled her was gone. In its place stood cold determination. Inside the meeting room, investigators presented a timeline that stretched across months of fraud, fake business registrations, identity theft, international laundering attempts, escrow account violations. Every transaction Margaret and Sophia thought they had hidden now sat printed in thick folders across a steel conference table. Olivia listened quietly, while agents explained how digital evidence connected nearly every fraudulent transfer directly back to devices registered under Margaret's name. Sophia's social media posts had also become unexpected evidence. Luxury purchases shown online matched frozen transactions from the stolen accounts almost perfectly. One investigator even displayed screenshots from Dubai Marina where Sophia proudly wore jewelry purchased less than 2 hours after money disappeared from Olivia's protected funds. People forget, the investigator said calmly, that the internet records almost everything. Olivia stared at the photos without emotion. Weeks ago, seeing those images would have shattered her. Now they simply looked pathetic. Desperate people pretending to be untouchable while unknowingly documenting their own crimes. Then came the moment Olivia never expected. The lead investigator informed her that authorities in Dubai were now cooperating fully with financial investigators. Several remaining accounts connected to Margaret and Sophia had been frozen permanently pending legal review. Olivia slowly lowered her eyes toward the table while absorbing the words. It was finally happening. The illusion of escape was over. Ethan squeezed her shoulder lightly before sliding another document toward her. A prepared legal statement clearing Olivia officially from suspicion related to the international fraud network. For weeks she had lived under the shadow of fear, wondering if her own identity might bury her alongside the people who stole from her. But now the truth was finally becoming public inside the systems that mattered most. Banks, courts, federal investigators, facts. Later that evening, Olivia returned home alone, while rain poured across Seattle once again. The apartment felt strangely quiet without panic living inside it anymore. Her phone buzzed one final time. Margaret. Olivia stared at the screen for several seconds before answering. Her mother sounded smaller than ever before. No anger, no manipulation, just exhaustion. "Olivia," Margaret whispered weakly, "please. We can still fix this." Olivia walked slowly toward the window overlooking the city lights. For most of her life, hearing her mother sound broken would have destroyed her emotionally. She would have forgiven everything just to stop the pain inside the family. But not anymore. Some damage changes people forever. "No," Olivia answered softly. "You stopped being my family the moment you decided I was something to use instead of someone to love." Silence filled the line. Then Margaret quietly began crying again, but this time Olivia felt nothing except distance. She finally understood the truth that had taken her months to accept. Loving someone does not excuse what they destroy. Olivia ended the call and placed the phone face down beside the window. Outside, Seattle glowed beneath the rain like a city beginning again after a storm. Behind her sat stacks of legal files, frozen account reports, and evidence from the worst betrayal of her life. But ahead of her stood something new: freedom. Not because the nightmare disappeared, but because she survived it without losing herself completely. And somewhere across the world, Margaret and Sophia were finally learning a lesson they never believed applied to them. Actions have consequences. If you enjoyed this story and want more emotional twists and dramatic family betrayals, don't forget to like and subscribe for the next series.